alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Yes, indeed, it's alive. My Yamaha Tenere 700, also known as the Mule, lives again. In this video, I share my continuing follies as I plow headfirst into the world of adventure motorcycling.
I can ride my bike with no handlebars.
Greetings moto guys and moto gals, and welcome back to the 333. So the last time I did an update on the T7 was around mid-April when I did a 1,000 mile review on the bike. I had just signed up for the Pine Barrens Adventure Riding Camp, which is a 2-day training course that teaches the fundamentals of off-road and adventure riding. So where has the Tenere been for the last month and a half? Did I sell it? Did I decide that adventure riding just wasn't for me? Hardly. I've been teasing this a bit with posts here and there on Instagram, but in a nutshell, I wrecked it on the second day of class, and it took an insanely long time to get all the replacement parts, and finally get it back onto the South Jersey fire roads. Pine Barrens 2, Chris 0. So what exactly happened to me, and what learning experiences can I share that might be beneficial to other riders who may just be starting out on their own journeys into adventure riding? Well, a lot happened in the past month and a half. Some of it humiliating, some of it painful, some of it satisfying, but all of it educational. I honestly would not trade the experience of wrecking my bike for an easier path, because I learned so much during the last few weeks. So let's step back in the YouTube time machine to the end of April when I took this class. It started out with basic drills and gradually ramped up over the 2 days. By the middle of day 2, we were drilling in deep sand traps and on whoop-de-doos and ruts in the woods. I really learned a lot and I loved the experience, but I'm not gonna lie. It got pretty tiring by the end of day 2, which was scheduled to end with a full-on ride through the deep, sandy, unforgiving heart of the Pine Barrens. The final ride was optional, and some people who had larger adventure bikes opted not to do it. I was pretty tired and I probably should have opted out as well, but I wanted to experience the entire class, so I chose to do it. Here's some footage from the graduation ride. Of course my GoPro battery died before I wrecked, so I didn't get that on video. I hung in for most of the ride fairly well, a couple of drops in the sugar sand, but I stayed with it. Towards the end of the ride, we did a trail that had many deep water holes on it, which were tiring and sort of stressful to navigate across. If you drop your bike into a deep water hole, it can be really difficult to clear the water out of the airbox and engine to get it restarted. We were just about to finish up this challenging trail when we came upon this super big, super gnarly water hole, the last one we had to cross. At this point, several of us were super tired, unfocused, and not at all enthusiastic about crossing this thing. So one of the instructors carved an alternate trail through the brush. About 6 of us took this route, and it seemed like a good solution, until I clipped a pine tree with my clutch hand while trying to maintain steady RPMs with my throttle. You can guess what happened next. I call my bike the Mule for a reason, because it can be very unforgiving and kick you in the face unexpectedly. When I got my hand ripped off the clutch, that's exactly what it did. The bike immediately looped on me. In fact, so fast, it literally left me standing on my feet grabbing at air. It felt like slow motion as I watched my bike wheelie into the air, catch a rut, then collide with the trunk of a second pine tree with a bone-curdling crunch. Luckily, it fell into the dry trail and not back into the gnarly water hole. The damage was extensive and obvious. Bashed in headlight, cracked cowlings, broken mirror, and indicator. The instructors all rushed over to help me, and we were able to wire tie it all together so I could get home. Pine Barrens 2, Chris 0. So what wisdom from this experience can I dispense to you, my dear viewers? What lessons have I learned so far, and what could I suggest to you to avoid obstacles that I have literally and figuratively crashed into? Well, I thought about this, and I know how much the motovlogging community seems to like nice little chunks of information. So here are 5 tips for other new adventure riders that I have learned from crashing, breaking, and fixing my T7. Tip 1. Accept the fact that you will drop and break your shiny new adventure bike. If you bought an ADV bike for the purpose of riding it on anything but paved asphalt, then you need to accept the fact that you will drop it and yeah, probably bust a few things on it too. If the idea of this makes you queasy, then it's probably better if you stick to the asphalt. Tip 2. Invest in protection accessories. There are tons of Farkles out there for adventure bikes, but you will get the most bang for your buck if you buy protection accessories for your bike first. Why? Because they can save you from breaking expensive OEM parts that take a long time to ship. For example, in my crash, I bashed up the whole headlight assembly on my T7. This part alone cost $465. A simple $40 headlight guard would have probably spared me 3 weeks of aggravation and a chunk of money. Tip 3. Get good insurance coverage. One bright spot during this whole experience was how good Geico motorcycle insurance turned out to be. Even though I own both of my bikes outright, I still carry full coverage on them, and it was worth it. Since my mishap only involved my bike, it was treated as a property damage claim, so my rates remained unchanged. I was also able to get reimbursed at a basic mechanics rate for doing my own repairs, in addition to covering the cost of all the replacement parts. Amazingly, with my coverage, I was actually able to set up the bike better than it was before the crash. Tip 4. Be a bit bold. I'm not really like an adrenaline junkie or a cowboy. I honestly love the sport and athleticism of riding motorcycles, especially adventure bikes. But what I am discovering is that the more timid you are on these adventure bikes, the more likely you are to crash on them. My bike's called the Mule, and that's exactly how I ride it. Like a stubborn, misbehaving, kick you in the ass when you're not looking mule. I wrestle it with my knees, I throw it around with my body sometimes, and I don't particularly use kid gloves when I ride on it. And you sort of need to ride this way, especially when you get into challenging terrain. If you're timid or hesitate, you'll almost definitely lose control of the bike. Looking back at my crash, I was timid as I made my way through the brush trail, and this caused me to hesitate and clip the first tree with my clutch hand. If I was a bit more assertive and confident in my approach, I might not have messed up my bike at all. And finally, tip 5, keep fighting and don't get discouraged. These bikes are big. Even a middleweight like the T7 is a formidable bike off-road. They're torquey, twitchy, and unforgiving. But I'm determined to master my bike and make it my friend, even if it kicks me in the face now and then. The learning process has been hard, physically demanding, humiliating, and a boatload of fun. And I intend to keep at it until I can confidently jump onto any surface that I might encounter in my journeys. After all, that's why I bought this big lug, so that I can get to beautiful places and see stuff that isn't always easy to get to. Thanks for watching. Click that subscribe button, and if you're just getting started into adventure riding, hold on. It's going to be a fun, bumpy ride.